Welcome back, everybody. It is another episode of the Take Two podcast. It's an exciting week for most people that I know. This is draft week for fantasy football. Reed and I are going to be diving in per usual. We're going to be talking about some fantasy advice, things we like, players we don't like, some sleepers for both dynasty leagues and redraft leagues. We'll try and touch on both for people who don't do one or the other. Give you our advice, some things to look for, and just kind of go from there. I know we both got some hot takes on players we like and some people that we're also down on that others might not be. So should be a fun episode, Reed. I know we're excited for this week, especially being the week before the best week of the year.
Yeah, opening a week, I'm excited. I know every NFL fan is excited. I'm waiting for 7 hours of commercial-free football. Those are the words I've been waiting for a long time. Um, that's like those are just amazing words, man. You just get just happiness
Oh,
arises on
absolutely.
me whenever I hear it. It's some of the best words you can ever say, if I think.
So yeah, I guess first off, today was also the cut down days, getting teams down to 53. Surprising cuts on the Seahawks that I saw. Reed and I are big Homer fans for people who are new to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Um, we won't get too far into the Seahawks. Reed and I can get in the habit of going down a rabbit hole going on the Seahawks, so we'll spare people of that expense today. But some interesting cut downs. Most notably that I saw Packers trading for Malik Willis and then cutting their other two quarterbacks, Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt. Kind of crazy stuff there. There's been a couple trades with some lower end players around the league. Just kind of some interesting stuff going all around. So
Yeah, definitely. If I'm being honest, I've only really paid attention to the Seahawks, but just based on what the Seahawks have done, there's been a lot of just kind of small trades that
right,
you're like, hey, I wouldn't know who this player was, but I only know him because they're on my Madden fantasy draft for 1 year. Like
right.
Travis Gibson or whatever. I think the Seahawks just traded for him. I was like, I didn't know who Buddy was until I had him on my fantasy draft in like Madden 22. It's the only reason I know him. But
Well, I didn't know him, so that's good for you for at least knowing who he was.
yeah. But I think. Are most of these moves really going to matter? Probably not, right? I mean, I don't think you can really tell me a player that's been cut from one team signs on their practice squad and then automatically makes a impact on another team. So I
Right.
don't know if many of these moves really matter. It's good to pay attention to them. Maybe you were like high on someone and they got cut and you're like, "Oh, maybe they weren't as good as I thought." But does it really matter? I don't really think so.
Fair enough. Diving into fantasy like we promised the world. I guess starting off, do you have any redraft league going this year, Reed?
I do not. I'm
Okay,
planning on joining one here pretty soon. Maybe just a random one, or maybe get in with my friends. But I'm not in one yet. I want to be in one.
I gotcha. So I did one. I have a work league that I just did. A 10-man super flex league. We had the draft Sunday night. I thought it went incredibly well. I'm already talking smack to all my coworkers saying how I'm just going to take their money. The usual. The biggest strategy that I had, and this is kind of specifically for super flex leagues, is I punted on quarterback. Now I know it's a bold strategy in a super flex, but everybody's scooping up quarterbacks early on. My strategy was I'm going out, I'm going to get two elite position players, right? Your skill position players. And then I'll scoop a quarterback later in the draft that I think has some high value that people are kind of sleeping on. We'll get to him in a second. So who I targeted is what I wanted to do. I had a late pick in the first round of the ninth overall pick. I wanted to target one of the two best running backs, so Brees Hall and Bijan Robinson, as far as fantasy value goes. I guess we'll start there. Do you agree that those are probably the two best running backs in fantasy?
Um, so I am not a big fan on Brees Hall, if I'm being
Interesting.
honest. If I'm being honest, I think he's a good running back. I think he's a top 10 for sure. I
At home?
don't I don't see where everyone's coming with he's going to be RB1. I don't think he's going to be RB1. I love Bijan on the other hand. I am a very big Bijan fan. I think he's going to be great this season. I think they finally have a good offensive coordinator. I love that entire Falcons offense in general. I'm just a big fan of the Falcons this year. I think they really have something there, and I think Bijan is going to be. I think Bijan's going to be one of the key players on that offense. So I'm a big fan of Bijan. Brees Hall, I like him. I'm not going to be using a first round pick on him in my fantasy league.
So if Bijan Robinson, he's a here RB1 then? You think he finishes as the best running back in fantasy then? Or who
I
else?
think so.
Who else are we talking about?
CMC and Bijan are my only two
Oh,
for
okay.
RB1.
Okay. Sorry. I completely just disregarded McCaffrey because he's just the RB1. I completely forgot about him. So I was thinking Bijan and Brees as RB2 and 3, just as like reasonable running backs you can get. Yeah, I 100% agree. Chris McCaffrey will be RB1, obviously, if he can stay healthy. Um, then you're talking Bijan Robinson, Brees Hall after that. You're thinking Brees Hall is even lesser than RB3? You say top
I'm
10? Is he in
I'm
your
thinking
five?
Brees Hall's five. I think Brees Hall's five.
Okay, so then you got Bijan at 2, 3 is Gibbs
I like
or
Gibbs. I like Williams.
Jonathan
I know
Taylor.
I'm really biased with Williams, if I'm being honest.
Kyrie Williams is not he might be top 5. He's borderline.
I like
I
Williams, man. I like Williams.
I just don't think they're gonna feed him that much.
I
I'm leery on Williams only because I feel like they're gonna be one pass heavy, two they're gonna try and deviate that workload. They're not gonna try and kill the guy like they did last year. So I just don't think he's gonna get as many opportunities that he had last year.
I agree, but I also think the efficiency numbers are there. I'm not a statistical guy, but I'm pretty sure Kyrie Williams was a very good in the efficiency rating. The carries he did get, he was pretty good in. And I just love that statistic in a running back. Every like yards per carry, I think that's one of the most important stats as a running back. Are they getting 4+ yards per carry? That's in my opinion, that's an amazing running back, right? And I'm not for sure on this. You can fact check me. I'm assuming that Kyron Williams is around that mark, and that's why I like Kyron Williams.
I mean, it's a fair point. I just like Saquon Barkley
Mm-hmm.
uh tends to be drafted later than Kyrie, which is strange to me. I think Barkley is going to be a great running back this year, strictly because of the offensive line he's run behind. DeAndre Swift, when he was on the Lions, wasn't that efficient as a runner. Comes over to the Eagles for 1 year, has a really good fantasy year as a running back, but then they don't re-sign him and they go out and get Saquon Barkley. Right. What does that tell you from a team that has a running back who produces and gets good numbers and then they let him walk in free agency? It probably means that they're seeing something behind the scenes that they don't really like or they can feel like they can upgrade at that position, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Which kind of ties me back into my next point. I'm low on DeAndre Swift. I'm going to the Bears. The offense is still really good. I feel he's being drafted way too high in these leagues. There's players like, I mean, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon is getting drafted after him in some leagues. Kenneth Walker in some leagues is going after him. That can't happen. We can't be having that.
I completely agree. I honestly would say I might be a DeAndre Swift hater. I used to love DeAndre Swift. I thought he was the second coming of Alvin Kamara. As Jameson knows, I'm a humongous fan of Alvin Kamara. He was my favorite running back at one point. Then he had some problems in an elevator and stuff. Still have love for the guy. I hope he finds his way back to being the running back he was his rookie year. But I thought DeAndre Swift was the second coming of Alvin Kamara. For the Lions, he wasn't that good. He was all right. He was a young guy. I had a lot of hope for him in fantasy. He goes to the Eagles. I think that's the year I traded him in our dynasty league. Got great value out of him. I'm still happy I traded him. He looked very good on the Eagles, and then he's coming to the Bears. I don't think DeAndre Swift's going to be good this year. I think. Do I want to make a take where Rashawn Johnson's going to be a better running back than DeAndre Swift?
That'd be a bad take.
I like Rashawn Johnson though.
Roshan,
Roshan. I don't know how to say his name, but I like him.
something like that. I know who you're talking about though.
He's the Bears' backup. And I think he's go to running back. He's a good physical player. I don't think he's gotten very many opportunities. And realistically, I don't think he's going to get very many opportunities. So realistically wise, don't think he's going to be coming out as anything. Hopefully, he's going to be better than DeAndre Swift, but I think DeAndre Swift's going to be the RB1. He's just not going to be very good.
I mean, they got Khalil Herbert in that running back room too.
I would stay away from any
Not
Bears running
that
back.
not that he's a great running back either, but I mean, I'm just saying Roshan Johnson's gonna have a hard time getting carries when he's also fighting with Khalil Herbert, who has starting experience last year with him.
Yeah, and Khalil Herbert did look good in the preseason.
So it's just gonna be tough. Not a big DeAndre Swift fan, so take that as you will. Sleeper running backs, specifically for redraft league. This also can apply to dynasty leagues. The running backs that I was targeting late to try and get some depth on a team. You got players like Devin Singletary, who's not getting a lot of love, even though he is the RB1 on the Giants. Granted, their team's not good. Their offensive line isn't great. His productivity is probably not going to be all that awesome, but he is an RB1, and him getting drafted that late is kind of surprising, where you can get some still value out of a guy. Another guy that I really like, Tajay Spears. He's going to be splitting a lot of the workload with Tony Pollard, and they're very similar backs. He was used a ton in preseason in pass catching situations and even lined out as like a wide receiver or a slot receiver. So in a PPR leagues, which I know the majority of leagues are nowadays, he's going to be huge for those catches and runs after catches and screens and stuff like that. So those are two guys you can get relatively late in the draft. I would even throw Gus Edwards if you want to take a chance on one of those Chargers running backs. It's going to be a stable of running backs back there, so you never know who's going to get the carries, who's going to get touchdowns. But he's kind of looking like he's RB1 on their depth chart as well, somebody who's going later in the drafts. So those are some
I got
guys to
another
keep
one.
an eye out for. So what do you got?
I got another running back.
What do you got?
This is more of a deeper sleeper, I think.
Okay.
I have Chase Brown, Bengals for
Yeah.
or running back for the Bengals. I've heard rumors. I don't know if he's starting week one. I think it's Zach Moss and Chase Brown. Those are their kind of two backs for the Bengals. They're kind of two very different runners. Chase Brown's more of the lightning, and then Zach Moss is more of your thunder, right? It's kind of the theme we're seeing in most teams now is you have a power back, and then you have your elusive pass catching back. I really think Chase Brown is just the better back all around than Zach Moss. I don't know what's going to happen week one, but if you don't have him rostered and he's in the waivers in your leagues, definitely watch him week one. If he explodes or if he even gets more snaps, more carries than Zach Moss, I think he'd be worth a pickup if you have the roster spot. Because I think as the year will go on, he's going to become better and better, and all of a sudden he's going to be a RB2 or a flex spot for you that could actually help on your fantasy team.
Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying. I don't know exactly who's listed as the RB1 in the depth chart for the Bengals. Chase Brown is definitely the third down back and the guy that's going to be the majority, if not all, of those screen passes and those short dump downs, stuff like that for the Bengals when they get into pass heavy situations. Zach Moss is going to get your goal line carries and your touchdowns and short yardage situations. So there's going to be some play and give and take between those two guys. I'm with you. I like Chase Brown as kind of coming out on the back end of the season as him coming out ahead of Zach Moss when it comes to touches in the end. I don't know how that's going to look early on in the season. So yeah, absolutely. If you can stash Chase Brown in your dynasty leagues for sure, you should be rostered in basically 100% of all dynasty leagues. If you can scoop him or trade for him for fairly cheap at this point, this would be the time to do it because as soon as he has a breakout game, his price is going to skyrocket. Zach Moss, if you have him as on your dynasty team or even in a redraft league, if he has a couple good games early on in the season, it might be a good idea to see if you can shop him around to see what you can get for him value wise, because you could trade him early on after a couple good games. And then if Chase Brown's productivity increases later on in the season, you could come out way ahead with a great deal early on in the season. So something to
Right.
monitor there. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen. This isn't the see all tell all, but just kind of our opinions on what we think is going to happen in that backfield.
I completely agree. Moving to two other running backs I want to talk about is the Steelers RB room. I know I mentioned to you this a little bit of, or I mentioned this a little bit, but Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, if you didn't know, they are both on contract years. When two running backs are on a contract year, I think it's going to be a pretty good battle between them to see who's going to get the job that next year. Because if you're a good GM, you're only signing one, and you're letting the other one walk, right? Um, Fantasy wise, though, what do you think, Jameson? What do you think about the backfield there?
I'm avoiding both of them, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I think it's too crowded. I don't love the situation. I think they're going to be behind a lot in a lot of games, meaning they're going to be passing the ball quite a bit. Neither one of them is an excellent pass catcher. I would argue Jalen Warren is probably the better of the two in that situation. So I guess maybe that answers your question. Maybe I'm liking Jalen Warren better in fantasy, but it's just a mess. The team's not good. I don't like either really going forward.
I completely agree. For a redraft league, I don't want any of them. I don't want Najee and I don't want Warren. Dynasty league, on the other hand, I'm thinking Jalen Warren is going to win the job. And that is what's kind of drawing me towards Jalen Warren is not this year, but next year. What can he do next year when he is the number one back and he is going to be getting the most amount of carries on that team? That's what I think is what's making me want Jalen Warren. How much would I give up for him in a dynasty league that I'm already in that I need to trade for him because I don't have him? I don't know. I don't know if I'm like super high on Jalen Warren where I'd give like a second. I honestly can't see myself giving up a second for Jalen Warren. So it's it depends upon the person, in my opinion. I do like Jalen Warren the best out of that backfield this year. Stay away from him. It's kind of looking on to next year, in my opinion.
No, I think that's extremely fair. I have Jalen Warren in a dynasty league. He's just kind of eating up a roster spot at this point because I don't know what to do with him. You can't cut him because he's too valuable because he's going to get touches and probably get touchdowns this year, but he's not good enough to start. So it's kind of a weird kind of situation to be in. I don't love it. Not that I'm trying to sell him for cheap, but I also know I can't get a lot for him. Similarly, in a running back room, we'll touch on this quick and then we'll move on to other positions to kind of dive into, is the Cardinals backfield.
Yep.
I know we talked on this on the NFC West podcast that we broke down. This offensive line is not good. James Conner is getting drafted extremely, like a lot higher than I would have thought. I don't know where that's coming from. I mean, he had decent production last year. I mean, Kyler Murray's back full time this year. Are they expecting him to get some kind of screens and stuff like that, or is it just goal line touchdowns and stuff? Another running back who's on a contract year, James Conner, but I think Trey Benson, and I think you're on the same page as me on this. I think he's kind of their future moving forward. So James Conner's kind of on a last year of his deal, and then he's out the door. I don't love James Conner. I feel like he's getting drafted too high, and I feel like there's just better running backs available in later rounds than him. Kind of those Tajay Spears kind of guys. Now he's not a RB1 on his team, but I still think he'll outproduce in production in the end. So I think he's being overvalued in my opinion.
I honestly am 100% backing you in this opinion. James Conner, I was super high in pre this early preseason, like June, July. So I was like, hey, James Conner's going to be a sleeper running back. He's going to be pretty good this year. We took a look at that line. Not a big fan of the Cardinals line. James Conner, then Trey Benson. The Cardinals took Trey Benson, who I also am a big fan on. You know, I took him in our dynasty draft last night. So Trey Benson, I don't think I'm gonna start him at all this year. He's more of a kind of like a Jalen Warren, who we just talked about. Trey Benson, I'm looking at next year. What can the Cardinals do to that line with James Conner gone? Trey Benson is that number one running back. Hopefully, I'm hoping for a better line. They're gonna have a threat of passing with Marvin Harrison. I'm hoping Trey Benson is gonna become a decent running back at best.
I think you're on the right track there. I'm high on Trey Benson. I think he has a good future on the Cardinals. So I'm definitely with you there. Going back to where I started this conversation, in the Superflex Dynasty, this is very specific to me, and in Superflex, I wanted to come away with one of the top three running backs. I said two earlier on, but I forgot about Christian McCaffrey. So I wanted to come out with either Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, or Breece Hall, which I did. I grabbed Bijan Robinson. And then I also wanted to come out with one of the top 4 receivers. So you're talking Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, and in my opinion, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Because of Justin Jefferson's situation, I have him at 6 and not 5. I ended up coming out with Amon-Ra St. Brown, which I was extremely happy about. I think he's going to have an incredible season this year. Not that those other guys won't. I just specifically talking kind of selfishly about the player that I got. So I guess talking those top receivers, are you in agreement with kind of who the top 5 are, being Jefferson number 5 or number 4, however you want to label him? Or do you think one of those guys are kind of overvalued, or you think there's another player who is undervalued that you think should be in that conversation?
I don't think anyone's really overvalued. I think everyone there is a very good player, and they're going to get the touches and the targets and the touchdowns that are going to make them good. There's one person that you didn't mention that I think should be up there. There's actually 2 people. One's Garrett Wilson. I think with Aaron Rodgers coming back, I'm very high on Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson's good for a breakout year. He kind of had a quiet year last year. He was all right. I think he was like wide receiver 20 or something like that. And then Marvin Harrison is my other guy. He's young. A lot of people are saying he's the best wide receiver we've seen in generations. There's a lot of hype behind him. I'm gonna hop on that train. Marvin Harrison, he's a dog. I think you can't really go wrong if you take him. And for those top guys, I would say Tyreek Hill is my wide receiver 1 this year.
Yeah, I could see him up there. I don't. It's either him or CeeDee Lamb for me.
Yeah.
The Cowboys need to throw the ball a lot. They just have a high-powered offense in general. So I could see CeeDee Lamb being up there. I could also see Tyreek Hill. Speed Kills. He had an incredible season last year with Tua. All the right things there. You're kind of like the 1A, 1B kind of situation. They're both going to be up there. They're both going to be great. So really no argument there. The one beef that I had with the whole draft process and these rankings is why on earth is Puka Nacua so high in these draft boards? And why is he so much higher than Cooper Kupp, who is back and healthy this season?
I'm not the guy to ask, dude.
I didn't know if you have it. Do you have an opinion on that? Do you agree with that? Do you think Puka Nacua is just that much better, like a couple rounds better as a fantasy draft than Cooper Kupp?
So I hate both of them. I think everyone knows this. I hate Puka Nacua and I hate Cooper Kupp. All right. I don't know why I hate them. I despise them. They're good players. Don't get me wrong. They're not on my fantasy team. They could be there in the 11th round, and I'm not taking them, dude. I can't start them. Like my conscience, I just can't put them in my starting lineup. Like I'm not the person to ask you, man. I think Cooper Cup's better than Puka Nacua, in my opinion, but I hate
Well,
both
that's
of them.
right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, Puka Nacua is going like rounds ahead of Cooper Kupp. And in my opinion, Cooper Cup's going to have a better season than Puka Nacua. I think
I
yeah, in redraft leagues, I actually thought about taking Cup because of where he's being drafted. He's falling down the league, down the board far enough that him compared to the other receivers in the same category that I would be willing to take him. So I mean, players that he's around, we're talking. Oh, who are we talking? You're talking Nico Collins, Mike Evans, Michael Pittman, Debo Samuel. Like, I like Cup over almost all those guys.
I like Michael Pittman this year.
I do not like Michael Pittman this year.
Why not?
Well, I got you. That's a little harsh. It's not that I don't like him. I just think he's being overvalued. Everybody's seeing AR-15 coming back, and they're like, Michael Pittman's going to be insane. Well, the problem is Gardner Minshew targeted his number 1 receivers at an extremely high rate. It just like it's just how he plays the game, which speaks very highly for Devontae Adams owners. If you draft Devontae Adams, Gardner Minshew, who was named the QB1 in Las Vegas, targets his wide receiver ones at extremely high rate, getting them a lot of targets, a lot of catches, a lot of touchdowns, right? So this inflates Michael Pittman's value, but Gardner Minshew's not on the team anymore. So now the AR's back, he's going to be running the ball more, meaning less passing plays happen in general, meaning less targets go over to Pittman. So I'm not saying he can't keep up the same production. I'm just saying the amount of opportunities that he's going to have this year, I feel like is going to be less than last year and what people think it's going to be. So in turn, I'm just down on Pittman as a receiver because he's not going to have as many targets as he's had the last couple of years, which I don't even think he's been like a star receiver in the last couple of years.
I can agree. Michael Pittman, I'm looking at his stats right now. I would say he probably averaged 10 targets a game.
Right.
I'm from what I think that's kind of on the higher end of a wide receiver. Usually, wide receivers are getting 5 or 6 targets a game, about depending, unless it's like a star, Justin Jefferson, who's getting the ball a lot, right? But a guy like Michael Pittman, who, like you said, isn't really a star, him getting like I think season high, him getting 16 targets a game. That's a lot, right?
That's insane.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. As for touchdowns, he did not have like any touchdowns at all last year.
Oh, he didn't?
He had 4.
Yeah, that's really low.
Yeah. That's something I'm looking at right now, and I'm like, ooh, like I don't know if I like Michael Pittman for scoring wise. If he does end up being touchdown dependent, he's gonna be terrible. I don't think Michael Pittman's gonna score very many touchdowns this year. I think AR 15 and Jonathan Taylor are gonna be the touchdown scorers. I
Yep.
think Michael Pittman will get them down the field, though. I think he'll get good yards, and I think he's good for 13 points a game, which is a good for a flex spot, in my opinion. So I think Michael Pittman, maybe not wide receiver 1, maybe not wide receiver 2, but I think he would be a good flex play if you're getting him late enough. I think in this mock draft, he went round 4. I don't know if I really like that. I think I'd want him round 6, round 5 ish.
That's reasonable. Um, a wide receiver that I am extremely high on this year is Terry McLaurin on the Commanders. Now, you know that I'm a big Commanders fan as of late. I'm hopping on the bandwagon. I've already made it very public that I think the Commanders are going to be in the Super Bowl in the next 3 years. I stand behind this. Jaden Daniels is my guy. I think he's going to be a great quarterback in this league. Terry McLaurin has had, I think he's been in the league 6 years. I'm going to fact check myself on this as I'm talking. All of the seasons that he has been in the league, he has put up 1,000 yards, I believe, except one. And he has done this with quarterbacks of the likes of Taylor Heineke. I think he had Kirk Cousins at the end of his.
I don't think he had Kirk.
Maybe you don't
I
think
don't
he
think
ever
he
they
had.
overlapped?
I don't think he had Kirk.
I feel like he did. 2019, maybe he might have had Kirk.
But that was like the one year he didn't have 1,000 yards, right?
Correct. It's the only year he didn't have 1,000
Yeah.
yards. So he had Taylor Heineke. He's had I can't think of all the other guys. They went
Sam
through.
Howell.
Sam Howell was last year, put up 1,000 yards last year. And then they had a slew of quarterbacks just like back to back to back to back that weren't great, right? They were very average quarterbacks. Now he's going to have an elite, well, going to be an elite level talent at quarterback. I can't say for sure if he will be this year. If he can get 1,000 yards with Sam Howell and Taylor Heineke, he's definitely going to get 1,000 yards with Jaden Daniels. So I
I
think
can
people
agree.
are sleeping on Terry McLaurin. He's fallen in drafts. Go and scoop him up in the round. Even reach on him by a round is what I did because I believe so highly in this guy. Um, go and get him because I think he's going to be my sleeper in redraft. I traded for him in some of my dynasty leagues for some depth. I am very high on him.
Yeah, I'm looking at where he was drafted in my mock draft I did. He was drafted really late. That's insane value. I was gonna compare
That's
him to
great
DK.
value.
I was gonna compare him to DK Metcalf. I think DK Metcalf and Terry McLaurin are very similar players. DK Metcalf also is a player that only has gotten 1,000 yards in every single season he's played except for his rookie season. So I think right there, that stat is extremely similar. I might be a homer. I'm a humongous DK Metcalf fan. I will defend that man with my life.
Good for him.
Um, yeah, I love DK Metcalf. I think he's going to be good this year. I think he's going to be a good sleeper. In this mock draft I did, he was taken around 5. I think that's right around where he should be taken. I think Terry McLaurin should be taken in round 5. Him being taken that late, I think
Probably 6 or 7.
he went around 8 in this draft.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's insane value. I think if you get Terry McLaurin round 7, round 6, round 8, take him. I think that's insane value. plug him in on the flex, plug him in at wide receiver too, and you're going to be getting. I think he'll be wide receiver. You think he's a top 20 wide receiver in fantasy this year?
Oh, absolutely.
I think so too. So that's top 20 wide receiver fantasy value in the
That's wide
seventh round.
receiver. That's wide receiver two, a player, a wide receiver two player. So he's going to be in everybody. Should be in everybody's flexes. You might, if you want to keep him on your bench for the first couple weeks, make him prove it to you. Fine, he will. Then you'll be starting him. You'll have to be finding some way to get him on your benches, or be incredible depth piece for your team that you got in the sixth, seventh round, which is incredible for your team. So, guy, I'm very high on. I don't know why I'm so passionate about the Commanders this year. I just love what they've done and put it together. So jumping on the bandwagon altogether. Do you have any sleeper receivers or any guys you think are overvalued or guys you think people should avoid?
Sleepers. This is kind of a bandwagon. Everyone expects this guy to be as a sleeper. Jaden Reed. I wouldn't even consider him a sleeper anymore. He's just a lot of people are excited about him. He's going to break out this year, I think. Jordan Love, I think, is going to be good this year as much as I don't want him to be. And I think Jaden Reed is probably going to be his number one wide receiver. Or he's not depth chart wise, he's not going to be the number one wide receiver. But I think he's going to be the number one in targets and yards. I think he's going to be the best receiver on that team. So fantasy wise, I really like Jaden Reed. For me personally, I'm going to be sitting him on my bench for probably the first 2 weeks, make him prove to me what I think is going to happen. And once he does, I think I'm going to throw him in that flex spot, maybe that wide receiver two spot. We'll see what happens. I think Jaden Reed's good this year. Another sleeper I have is Jackson Smith Najigba, another Seahawks receiver. Um, JSN started last year, his rookie year. He didn't get very many snap share. His snap share was pretty bad. His target share was pretty bad too. Interesting stat. Jake Bobo, if anyone knows who that is, that's another Seahawks deep pull. Jake Bobo and JSN had the exact same snap share. Jake Bobo was undrafted and JSN was a first round pick. So that just shows how bad he kind of was the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season. Then I think it was week 15 against the Eagles. He had a game-winning touchdown catch. Sorry, I'm bragging about the Seahawks right now. But after that, I think JSN's been a different player. I think he's been a amazing catcher, amazing route runner, and I'm really excited to see what he can do this year. And he's a sleeper for me, and I think he's going to take Tyler Lockett's spot after this year. So I'm really excited for JSN in dynasty leagues, redraft leagues. Maybe he'll be good. I'd be watching out for him. Take him in the late rounds if he's on waivers. Definitely pick him up, but definitely look out for JSN.
I like it. I like it. I'll throw you a couple sleepers as well. Um, the Bills, right? Everybody thinks the Bills are going to be good, or they should be good, right? You have Josh Allen. Both their wide receiver one on their team isn't getting drafted until crazy late in draft. Like we're talking after Terry McLaurin. So it's either going to be Keon Coleman or it's going to be Kahil Shakir, right? One of those two is going to be their wide receiver one on that team at the end of the season. And you can get both of them extremely late in the draft. So I would scoop whichever one of those two you think is going to be their wide receiver one. Personally, I think it'll be Keon Coleman by the end of the season. Kahil Shakir is going to be their slot guy and has just a little more experience in the system. So earlier on, he might be kind of their go-to target. Segue and me to who I believe is going to be the tight end one of the league this year. And I don't know if there's a hot take or not. I think Dalton Kincaid will finish the season as tight end one. Me being the Bills don't have a lot of receivers, Josh Allen is going to have to throw the ball to somebody. Dalton Kincaid is going to be that guy. He's going to be a reliable guy. He's going to get probably 7, 8 to 10 targets every game. Dump downs, check downs, out routes, corners, things that they need him to get done. He's a very, very good pass catcher. They've even put him out at receiver sometimes last year. I would expect that to continue. He's going way later than a lot of these other tight ends. Your consensus tight end ones, Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, those guys. Dalton Kincaid is floor as he's finishing top 5 at tight end. I think he pushes the limit and might end up as tight end one. No, I'll say it. He's going to end up being tight end one.
I like that. I honestly would agree with you, except my boy Sam Laporta is in the league, so that's not possible, dude. All right, Sam Laporta's tight end one for the next 5 years, guys. All right. Sam Laporta is the GOAT. That's why his name should be changed to Sam Lagoda. All right. Just a little Lagoda glaze there for you guys. But a tight end sleeper I have. I don't know if you would call this a sleeper, but I have Brock Bowers. I think the uh Raiders, Jeepers. The Raiders use Brock Bowers a lot in the preseason. I think he got targeted like 7 times in one drive. I saw a stat or something, which is insane. A lot sometimes receivers don't get targeted 7 times in a game, and he got it in one drive. So that's insane. Gardner Minshew is the starting quarterback for the Raiders, and I think for the Colts at least he did use their tight end a lot. Mo Alley Cox, I think, was their tight end. So he uses tight end a lot. So I really like Brock Bowers with this quarterback, and I like Brock Bowers in this system just with how much he's being used in the preseason.
Yeah, I think Dalton Kincaid, Brock Bowers, and Jake Ferguson are probably my three favorite lower of the top 10 tight ends. Um, you have your Pat Fryermuth, who's probably going to get a lot of checkdowns from Russell Wilson. You have your Dalton Schultz, who's just on a high-powered offense. Problem with him is he's going to be splitting targets with four other people on the same offense. So guys that are going to be good, but just they're going to be having a lot of weird offenses that aren't going to get him the targets. So Trey McBride, another person who's in a great situation, get a lot of targets because there's not a lot of weapons on that offense. That's my biggest fear with Sam Laporta. I almost said Lagoda. You've been saying it so much that you're almost making me say it. He's a great tight end. He might be the best tight end in the league. I mean, it might be a little early to say that, but I mean we're approaching that point, right?
He
The
is.
problem is their offense is going to be so good that I don't know if they're going to need him as much as the Cardinals are going to need Trey McBride or the Bills are going to need Dalton Kincaid, which is what's going to propel those two guys to be those top tight ends. So
Yeah.
just I'm
Yeah.
using logic over my heart there, Reed. Something you
Sam
probably
Laporta, dude. Sam Lagoda. Sam Lagoda, man. That's all I gotta say. Sam Lagoda. That's my argument. Sam Lagoda.
fair enough. You're entitled to your opinion even when it's wrong.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. One tight end I want to ask for your opinion on is Kyle Pitts. What do we think about Kyle Pitts?
Oh, listen, a man can only have his heart broken so many times before you just give up, right?
Yeah.
I had Kyle Pitts on my teams the last couple of years. I ended up trading him away for dime on the dollar or pennies on the dollar or nickels on the dollar, however you want to say it. I didn't get pennies on the dollar. I actually got some value back, so it wouldn't be fair to say I got pennies on the dollar. Anyways, I gave up on him early. He didn't do great last year, so it kind of worked out in my favor. Again, I don't trust him to do good this year, even on the offense he's on. I don't care. I'm done with him. Buy
Yeah.
take him at your own risk.
Yeah. I think Kyle Pitts is going way too high, in my opinion, in drafts. He's going, that's round 7 in this draft. He went round 7. I think that's way too high for Kyle Pitts. I do think Kyle Pitts is going to do something this year. I think he's going to be doing better than he has been doing. I don't think he's going to be a top 5 tight end. I think
I don't.
he'll be around tight end 8 if I have to
That sounds
guess.
fair.
Tight end kind of falls off after you get outside of the top 5 tight ends, and you kind of just get into all right guys. They're nothing special really. So I think he'll get around 8, 7-ish in the tight end rankings. I think he'll do a little bit of something, and I think he'll be a serviceable tight end on your fantasy if you're gonna get him late enough. At round 7, I'd try and if he's there in round 8, take him. I don't know if I really want him in round 7. Another tight end I want to talk about is TJ Hawkinson. He's out for a few weeks. Do you know how many weeks he's out for?
At least the first four because he's on the pup list to start the season.
Yeah, so
Oh,
first 4
any
weeks, he's out. That's kind of a bummer. So you're gonna have to you can take him late here in this mock draft. He went extremely late. I think pick him up, throw him on the IR. He comes back week 6. All of a sudden, we see the old TJ Hawkinson that was on the Lions before Sam Lagoda replaced him. Easiest replacement in his life, dude. Sam Lagoda is way better than TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson is a good tight end. I do have him finishing like tight end 10 just because he misses a lot of weeks in the earlier of the season. But the weeks he's in, I think he's going to be acting as like a tight end 6. So if he's on your roster, I think you plug him in once he's healthy, and I think he'll be a good tight end for you.
Oh, fair enough. Touching on quarterbacks, and then we can briefly touch on defenses or kickers that have decent matchups for week one. We're not talking about season long stuff. Or
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
always play the kicker and the defense week by week, right? I have no loyalty to any of those guys. I'm looking straight just matchups, what teams give up the most kicking points, teams that have good uh defenses but not good enough to let them score. We'll dive into that a little bit more. Quarterback wise, um, my strategy is punt on quarterback. So you can get quarterbacks like Brock Purdy, you can get quarterbacks like Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff way later than these top guys that people are reaching on, and there's still great position players still on the board. So my strategy and my advice to people is, well, I guess it depends on where you're picking and how the board falls. But if you can wait on quarterback and stock up on, 2 to 3 good, really good position players, and then come in and get a Jared Goff in one of the later rounds, I think Jared Goff is going to be for sure top 10. I would argue he might even finish top 5 in quarterback play this year. I think he was number 7 last year. And I think he's still getting disrespect with the same offensive coordinator and basically the same offense, which is mind blowing to me. So that was my strategy going in to see if I can get Jared Goff in one of the later rounds and still get great value at position players earlier than that, so to still compete. So my advice to people is that another player that I really like is Matthew Stafford. Like I said, I think the Rams are going to have a really good offense this year, and everybody's kind of sleeping on Stafford because of the injuries and just he hasn't been great the last couple of years. I think he gets that back together, and I think they have a really good year. So those are 2 quarterbacks that I'm targeting later in the draft that can help you win your league, and you can still fill out your roster with elite level talent elsewhere at the other positions.
Yeah, for late level, I think there's great value there. Now I'm going to start talking about high level. These are guys you're going to be taking early. If it all depends upon how the board falls, right? In a redraft league, if someone's there, they're there, right? I'm thinking right away, Lamar Jackson. I think he's going to have a monstrous year this year. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson. That honest, we're talking how in running back rooms they're doing the Thunder and Lightning. Now this
Mm-hmm.
is the quarterback running back room. That's the Thunder and Lightning. They're both on the field at the same time, right?
Colts have the same similar situation with JT and
Yeah,
AR.
I love it. I think Lamar Jackson is going to be not only a good passer, I think he's also going to be a good runner. I think everyone knows that Lamar Jackson's a running back that can kind of throw the ball. But Lamar Jackson, I really like this year, and you just mentioned it. I really like AR-15 this year. I think AR-15, if he can stay healthy, I think he will be a top 10 quarterback for sure. Just with that rushing upside, he runs like Cam Newton. I think that's your most likely comparison, right? You can say he's Josh Allen just with a worse arm, but I like comparing him to Cam Newton. I think he runs like Cam Newton. He just gets hurt a little bit more than Cam Newton did. So I'm a big AR and Lamar Jackson fan.
Are you of the? I know we kept saying that it depends on how the board falls. Are you of the strategy take your quarterback early to ensure that you get high level play out of your quarterback position at the sacrifice of a different position, or are you kind of in the same mindset that I am? As well, we can wait a little bit longer. We don't need one of these top 5 guys. We can suffice with the 5 to 10, the 5 to 15 range quarterback.
So this mock draft I did, I'm just gonna say I took Bijan Robinson in the first round, which
Okay.
I think is a great pick. Second round, I took Devontae Adams.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Third round, I took Isaiah Pacheco, who we didn't touch on, but I think he's gonna be good this year. I think Isaiah Pacheco's good. And then fourth round, I took Lamar Jackson. So I don't know if you'd say that high. I would say I saw Lamar Jackson there at the fourth round, and like I said, I'm high on Lamar Jackson. So I just kind of I felt like I had to take him that he was there. So Lamar, I would say that's fairly high round. I would say actually more middle round. I took 3 skill positions that I really sets me up good, and then I took I would say an elite quarterback. So I like these first 4 picks that I did. So I would say Lamar Jackson. I would say take your quarterback between rounds 4 and rounds 7, take your first quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's pretty average, I think, for where you're looking. A quarterback that gets drafted decently high that I would be a little leery on, Jalen Hurts. I think he's kind of overpriced or overvalued for where he's being drafted for what productivity that he had late in the season last year and kind of how this offense is looking. I think the Eagles in general are going to take a step back this year. I don't think they're going to do the tush push as much, meaning rushing touchdowns are probably going to come down slightly, which decreases the value significantly.
But up
Uh,
Saquon's.
Correct. I think that adds another dynamic to it. You have a better running back this year, so you're going to hand the ball off in short situations. I don't love it. I think he's being drafted a little high for my liking. The other one is Justin Herbert. His value's obviously fallen since Jim Harbaugh has been there with the heavy run game. They don't have great receivers. I think it's gonna be a lot of play action pass. I think he'll be startable for sure. He's gonna finish probably top 10. I just don't think he's gonna be that top 5 borderline quarterback that we all want him to be.
I can agree. I made a weird face there. I thought you were going to say he's not even top 10. I think Justin Herbert's way too good of a player for Jim Harbaugh just to make him hand off every single time. I honestly would say Justin Herbert's the best player on that team. Is there really an argument for a different player?
No, I would agree with you there. I tried to come up with something just to combat you, but I got nothing.
Like my second would be Derwin James when he's healthy, but when is he healthy?
Khalil Herbert when he gets on those 3-game tears.
Khalil Herbert?
Clear Mac. Jesus, sorry.
I was like, "Who am I missing something? Is he on the Chargers now or what?" But yeah, I think Justin Herbert. I think he's definitely top 10. Like I said, he's way too good of a player for you just to make him hand the ball off every time. Of course, we know Jim Harbaugh is a I was about to say handoff merchant, but that's JJ McCarthy. He's a run first type of coach. So I think Justin Herbert is going to be passing less, but I think he's a very good player that it won't really matter. Top 5, I don't think he will be. But top 10, he will be.
I got him right in the same ballpark. We'll touch on a couple of defenses that I like and a couple of kickers that I like. We're kind of running out of time. The 2 defenses that I like, this is going to sound very homerish. I really like the Seahawks defense in week 1. They play the Broncos. The new scheme that teams haven't had a lot of film on other than the Ravens last year and how the Seahawks are going to kind of play their defense, I think is going to give Sean Payton a really hard time, especially with their rookie quarterback in his first start. I think you're going to get a lot of good value out of the Seahawks defense there because they're not drafted super high. So for week 1, I'm liking them. The other defense that I really like are the Bengals. They go up against the Patriots, who are either going to start Drake May or Jacoby Brissett. I don't think they've announced who they're starting week 1. Regardless of that situation, I like the Bengals defense to light it up against the Patriots. I don't think that game's going to be relatively close. I guess what are your thoughts there?
I definitely agree with those defenses. I'll touch on kickers. My number one kicker, I think this year, or not this year, this week 1 is Jason Sanders, Dolphins kicker. They are facing Jacksonville week 1. And I think the Dolphins are a very high powered offense. We saw it last year. They put up like 70 points against the Broncos. I think that's insane. But it's a high powered offense. It's against Jacksonville, who's an all right defense. I mean, I wouldn't call them good. I wouldn't call them bad. They're just a kind of middle of the road defense. And I think the Dolphins are going to be scoring a good amount of points. And I think Jason Sanders, sorry, is going to be kicking a lot.
Yeah, fair enough. I like it. I think either kicker in the Chiefs Ravens game is going to get you some value. Plus, those guys you can probably keep on your roster the whole season. Those are probably the 2 of the highest kickers in fantasy right now. So it kind of goes without saying, but I just think that matchup in general between those 2 teams, I think there might be a lot of field goals kicked. Um, so yeah, that's what we got. Some great fantasy talk, Reed. Nice work. I think that was very
Definitely.
informative. I think it was kind of opinion based, so hopefully people agree with us, or hopefully we prove them right, so they keep coming back for more. But
Definitely. Yeah,
we got
I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I hope you guys maybe learned something, disagreed with something, are now going into your fantasy league or draft tomorrow or in a few days with a new strategy. Looking for guys that we mentioned, looking for guys that we mentioned not to draft. I hope we helped you guys, and I wish you guys the best. I wish you guys the best of luck in your fantasy seasons. Keep coming back for more fantasy advice. We'll always give you some more. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and definitely leave us some comments agreeing with us or not agreeing with us.
Peace out.